The gentleman from New York, Mr. Torres, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know that if the self-closing door had been properly functioning at Twin Parks Northwest, the smoke would have been contained and countless lives would have been saved. Local law requires landlords to install and maintain self-closing doors. In addition to HPD, the housing department, both the buildings department and the fire department have the authority to issue violations relating to self-closing doors. Is that correct? And these violations are adjudicated by the Environmental Control Board, which as of 2020 had $1.5 billion in uncollected fines. So the inability to collect fines raises serious questions about the effectiveness of the city's mechanism for enforcing the self-closing door mandate, hence the need for federal intervention. And so my question to the HPD commissioner, if there were a federal mandate for self-closing doors, and if you had the authority to suspend a Section 8 payment to a landlord based on a violation of that mandate, would that provide the city of New York with a powerful enforcement tool?
Thank you, Member Torres. We passed, and you were in the city council when it happened, a local law making the self-closing door a life and safety emergency repair required condition that needed to be corrected within this 21-day period that's in the local law. That is a very important step toward addressing this problem. The housing quality standard at the federal level still does not have the self-closing door as a requirement, and other agencies can speak to this. We're encouraged by the fact that in our conversations with HUD, they're moving in that direction with an expected date of requiring self-closing doors of September 2023. We're encouraging that happens sooner rather than later.
And that would enhance your ability to enforce the
That would create a federal backstop. It would show the federal commitment to this important issue.
You spoke about intensified enforcement. You have data on the number of, since the fire in Twin Parks Northwest, how many inspections has the city conducted? How many violations has the city issued in relation to self-closing doors?
So it's an interesting phenomenon, and I think it points to the need for us to educate the public, because of that huge number of violations that we issued, 620,000, less than about 0.3%, or 99.7% of the violations issued were not for self-closing doors. We issued 22,000 violations in one fiscal year. 80% of them were cured, but the violations and the complaints don't quite match up.
What about since the fire? How many inspections? I mean, if you don't have the data, can you get the committee that information?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The number of inspections and violations since the fire.
Oh, we can provide that, certainly, for sure.
As you know, the use of space heaters is often a cry for help and a cry for heat. And when it comes to heat in the apartment, common sense dictates that the temperature on the inside should depend on the temperature on the outside. If the temperature on the outside is lower, then the temperature on the inside should be higher to keep tenants warm. And yet during nighttime, New York City law only requires the indoor temperature to be 62 degrees, regardless of the outdoor temperature. The outdoor temperature could be 50 degrees or 25 degrees or 0 degrees. No matter what the outdoor temperature might be, the required indoor temperature at nighttime remains frozen at 62 degrees. Does that make sense? Does it make sense to have the same indoor temperature requirement for 0-degree weather as you would have for 50-degree weather?
I'm not a heat expert, but
at the level of common sense.
You're right. Common sense tells you that you might want to be a little warmer than 62 degrees. I keep my home a little warmer than that. You know, we have a heat season that starts in October, and runs through the spring. We're coming up on that heat season, and I just want to take this opportunity to tell Congress that with your support, we we could increase the core of inspectors that we have, the army of inspectors that we have, the creation of affordable housing, the quality of that affordable housing, make it modern, smart heating, all the things that our agency is charged with doing, which is creating high quality housing that's affordable to New Yorkers.
It seems like you acknowledge, even if the landlord is providing the legally required amount of heat, what the law requires might fall short of what tenants would need to remain warm in that apartment. You acknowledge that at some level.
I think just as a human being, yes, not as an official.
Fair enough. I'm going to wrap up, but how often does HPD and HCR, both administrators of Section 8, it's a federally funded, federally regulated program, but it's administered by local authorities, how often does HPD and HCR conduct Section 8 inspections of apartments and buildings, and are those inspections proactive or complaint-based?
I'll give you a rest. I'll go for a second. We go out annually for project-based vouchers. As tenant-based, we're going out upon lease-up, so we're going out if the apartment turns over annually. And on the project-based, we go out and inspect 20% of the units every year in those buildings.
Annual inspections, how often? And the
I
Section 8 inspections.
Yeah, the bonus that the Section 8 voucher holder in New York City gets is that they get a lot more inspections from the City of New York than any other agency.
And how often are those inspections?
But the Section 8 inspections, correct? I'm thinking they're biennial for the housing quality standard. And if I'm wrong, we can correct the record.
Get back to us on
yes.
So if I'm a tenant with an HCR voucher and I submit a complaint about inadequate heat and hot water, do you just wait a year in order to conduct the inspection, or is there a complaint-based inspection, and how long would it take to send a Section 8 inspector to my apartment?
So if we find a heat issue on the inspection, we, to the extent it was a health and safety, it would have to be corrected within 24 hours. Otherwise, there's a 30-day for all HQS inspections to be cured if they're not life and safety. But we also respond to tenant complaints. So if a tenant calls us and complains, we would go out. We also would refer tenants to the city's 311, which is really the first line of defense for issues around heat and hot water as they're enforcing the Housing Maintenance Code.
And I'm going to wrap it up. New York State and New York City have a confusing patchwork of inspections. There are inspections conducted under federal, state, and local law, inspections conducted by HUD at the federal level, HCR at the state level, HPD, FDNY, DOB at the local level. There are FOSS inspections of public housing conducted by HUD, inspections of rent-regulated housing conducted by HCR, inspections of all units conducted by HPD, inspections of Section 8 units conducted by HCR, HPD, and NYCHA. Which raises the question, does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? So suppose a New York City HPD inspector found a dangerous condition in a Section 8 rent-regulated unit. Would that HPD inspector automatically notify the Section 8 administrator, say HCR, about the dangerous condition in the Section 8 building? Is there a system of automatic notification among the various inspectors? So
the first level of responsibility is to contact the landlord, the tenant, start the clock on any especially emergency condition, level the penalties immediately if the condition doesn't get corrected. I am not, and you know I've been on the job for 8 weeks, so I'm not entirely sure what the protocols are between our agencies in terms of sharing that automatically, but I'm sure there is.
I suspect there is no system of automatic coordination and notification. Is that correct, Commissioner?
Correct. I think in general, first line of defense would go to the city. The city would ensure that that violation is corrected, certainly in the case of an emergency violation immediately. But they would not necessarily notify us if they went in and corrected that and it was resolved.
The city is conducting inspections under the local law, whereas if you're a Section 8 administrator, you're enforcing housing quality standards under federal law.
Correct.
So there should be a system of automatic coordination and notification among federal, state, and city inspectors. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.